This is the HX Collective Work Channel, where we explore how our relationship with work shapes our growth and flourishing. Join me and my guest, Dean Carter, as he recounts his connection with workplace situations and the impact of these situations on his human experience. The HX Collective explores the human experience through three main channels of life: work, relationships, and self. With raw, authentic conversations, the podcast investigates how challenges can become powerful teachers, leading to personal growth and deeper connections. Rooted in humanity-centered design, each episode reflects a commitment to doing good and doing well, featuring diverse voices and generational perspectives. Expect gripping stories of struggle and success, with thought-provoking discussions and concrete tools and tactics that encourage you to rethink your relationship with distress, helping you to establish your full human experience. This is the HX Collective channel. Hello, my good friend Dean Carter, fellow contributor and collaborator in all things HX Collective. I am so thrilled to have this conversation with you today as we are focusing on our united mission to elevate human flourishing. So, before we dig into the conversation, I would love for you to spend a minute with our audience and just give them a perspective of like, who are you, my friend?
That's a big question. Who am I? Well, I am Dean Carter, and I am a husband of 25 years. As a matter of fact, this is my 25th wedding anniversary to my husband, Mark. I'm a dad of our daughter who is getting married on May 10th. I will be soon a father in law. Um, I am a longtime head of HR, and that's part of my identity and who I am. So this is my 25th anniversary actually of my being a head of HR. And so I've for iconic companies that you probably recognize like Fossil and Sears and Patagonia. And those are things. But my thing that I'm most proud of is my work and who I am is I really get engaged with my communities wherever I am. Like in Dallas, we built a monument to um, AIDS survivors and people who are around in the Cedar Springs LGBTQ area. So that community is very important to me. And then just I always find it's important to leave things better than you find them. So I really get engaged in social work or community projects or like I'm involved with the local music academy. So I'm always involved. I think it's really important for balance of life and I think to be flourishing, to really feel like you're engaged in your community, you're engaged in your relationships, you're engaged in a broad things that it's almost like the more the more you are engaged in each of these pieces, it lifts all boats.
Yeah. So, Dean, I have to say, for the benefit of our audience, I've had the pleasure of being connected to you as a mentor, as a colleague, as a collaborator, really for the duration of like my formative years. I met you when I was 19, and you were always the leader that was bringing me along in my own quest to really become the best version of myself. So when you talk about engagement, I just want the audience to know like that's not just a flip buzzword, that there's a certain level of relationship and the level of like commitment that I personally have experienced. And when we think about this broad topic of human experience and human flourishing, it's so tempting for people to see that as something cute or trite. But
Right.
I would love if you would to share, why is this as a subject area? Why is this such a critical moment to be talking about the human experience?
Well, at this moment, super important. The more I don't know if you saw the movie Matrix or anything, what happens when you don't really focus on the human, like AI takes over and you turn into like a pod of an energy battery. I mean, that's the extreme version of us not paying attention to humanity. So I've ultimately becoming a battery for robots. So it's a pretty terrifying moment. But I do think that in a time where there's so much really beautiful opportunity in being even more human and more connected and doing really things because of technology. And at the same time, it's terrifying if we don't really think about the human part of the human connection and technology. And I think that we haven't, sometimes we release these things into the world that are really seem really cool, and they're actually cause more problems and challenges. You just have to put boundaries around them. For example, social media, really cool to stay connected to people, but it also can be really dangerous in the way people interact. I think the same thing about AI in this current moment when we're going to see probably more transformation than we've ever seen. But I think the most important part to remember in flourishing is, um, especially in this moment, is the uniqueness of being human. And there is AI is never going to be able to hold your hand when you lose a parent. AI is never going to be able to, like, after experiences of like how to respond to you when you've lost your job, or you've lost something that's important to you, like sight or hearing, or what, those AI is not ever going to have the wisdom or the experiences or those things to comfort. And so I just, yeah, there's unique things about, and AI is not going to giggle. It's humor is so human. I just listened to Trevor Noah, and like the nature of humor is we laugh. We
Yeah.
laugh. Without even knowing it, we can't help it, but we laugh. And this is one of the first things babies do, if you notice that, in addition to
Yeah.
cry. They laugh. They giggle. Like the funniest thing for no reason. They laugh at crazy stuff. You just have to remember the importance in all the craziness of the world. We're all like humans, and we all laugh, we all cry, we all mourn, we all celebrate. And no matter what happens in technology, still remember, put a human in the loop.
Yeah.
That's the test. Put a
So
good
key.
human in.
I love that, when and you do think about what often feels like a threat to the human experience is often, relegated into efficiencies and
Yeah.
effectiveness and the inconvenience. And, I often say when I'm working with clients and talking a lot about, building relationships that can lead to sales, I always say people don't fall in love efficiently. We don't have a speed or on ramp to bring forth that sort of human dynamic and human connection. And I love that perspective of like AI is never going to hold your hand. I mean, I think something that we all can look at. And yet the Matrix is a good one. I actually thought you were going to say Wally. You remember the movie Wally, where like, I mean, the human experience is like, hi, we're going to walk around and drink, milkshakes, and like, but I mean, I
Wally is
mean,
a good example too. Yeah.
but you can see what happens when the human race takes its eye off of the human part of that race. So, Dean, part of our work at the HX Collective is how we unite our perspectives on three very specific lenses of human experience. And so, the first of those lenses is the conversation of human flourishing at work. Now, I know you could give us a master class on things that companies and business people can be doing to really elevate the human experience. But once again, through your lens, not only as a
Yeah.
veteran in human resources, but just looking at the workplace and this conversation of human experience, like why is it a strategic imperative for companies to be looking at elevating the human experience?
Well, because we employ humans, but they're the ones that do the work. Truth is, when you're thriving and flourishing, you're actually a better worker. And so, there's a really good, strong business reason that healthy humans are more going to be more productive. They're going to be more collaborative. I mean, there are the tons of data on it. I just think that in this moment, there are ways, if you really want to drive two things with a lot of conversations right now, on productivity and velocity. We need more productivity. We move faster. More productivity, move faster. Yes, 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 yes. We've all, and the matter of fact, we talk about manufacturing in the U.S. and like the lack of factories and things. By the way, we produce more in the U.S. now than we've ever produced in history. We just are not using a lot of humans in the process. They're doing other things. They're designing things that are making the stuff. So our manufacturing business is actually on fire, and our production per person is on fire because of innovation. But you have to remember, like the in this whole process, there's still human beings we have involved, and the humans that are doing the work are just doing different kinds of work.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean by flourishing is I have got a very specific definition of what flourishing means for me. Deb, you've got a very different definition about what flourishing means for you. And I think you have to, in work, you don't have to make, everybody happy. Like, that's a, but you do need to understand, the valuable moments and where you can, be there for valuable moments. And what I mean by this is like when you have a baby, there's a lot of things going on. And how do you support women and men and families that moment when you're raising your first child? Or supporting women during breastfeeding. And there's a huge, huge, those are big challenges. So how do you continue to work, continue to breastfeed, and how do you get on an airplane?
Yeah.
These are very challenging. Sounds like very simple thing, but worst day of someone's women's life, sometimes I've heard in the past, is pouring your breast milk out in the toilet in the airport. That should never happen. I can't tell you how many women's like if you could not have that happen and allow them to take the baby with them and a companion, that's flourishing and providing the different type of care. Let's go to all the other end. We have an aging parent. It's impossible to focus on work when you're thinking about, your parents just fell today, or they did something that wasn't smart. They ate something they shouldn't have eaten, like a child that's just very far away from and can't take care of. I'm a better employee at work when work helps me deal with the things that I can't control.
Yeah.
Or I can. So yeah, if I'm it's a and you can get my conversation with boss and productivity really quick. The We can squeeze it out of people. You can squeeze velocity, you can squeeze productivity, but only for a little time. And a matter of fact, we're so good at that, we're killing people. Dr. Stanley Pfeffer has a really good book called We're Dying for a Paycheck. And he has all the science and data that says we are working people to death.
Literally.
That's why we're having more cancer, more depression, more loneliness, everything. Work is killing people. And we're complaining about the high cost of benefits. Guess who's causing the problem with the high cost of benefits? Work. we're, we're making people sick. And then we're complaining because we have to pay a bunch of money to fix them because they're sick. So, and it's not just physical issues, it's in cancer and all these things, but also mental issues caused by work. And so, anyhow, the more just making the money reason for this. If you have a healthy workforce that you're taking care of, they won't go to the doctor's office and they won't get as sick and they won't get cancer and they won't have depression and your medical bills will go down and you'll make more money. Just making
Well,
a money thing. So it
I
not means it's just a good thing to do.
Well, it is, and so I'm gonna continue to build on that thread because I know that you of all of the allies, you have likely had to address the boardroom conversations when investing in the human experience or putting attention towards human engagement, how quickly that can be dismissed as woo-woo or soft or whatever, and you're making a good argument around the economics, but on a practical level, how have you been able to influence leaders, CFOs,
Yeah.
CEOs, where maybe they're thinking about that velocity and productivity, and they're sort of missing out on the other pieces? Like, what are some of the compelling, persuasive arguments or discussions that you've been at the forefront to get people to buy in?
In every conversation, anytime we're having a persuasive conversation, you have to think about what is important to the person you're talking to. So, how do you make it important to them? So, in a boardroom, these are people who have formal, written, legal responsibilities to a variety of shareholders, and typically that means to make more money for the company. So, they have a very specific need around the financial performance of the company. So, what I think we fail to do is we talk about experiences and maybe even flourishing and the human experience in a way that just isn't that cool, isn't that nice. And by the way, we improved happiness, flourishing experience by 14 points this year. And yay, so what? So what? And so I don't think we ever get to the so what. We talk about the programs and all the things that we do to, help people be more happy, more engaged, more feel like they belong, all these things, but never tie it to business outcomes. And I think that that is the role of a lot of like really, I would put this in the hands of a lot of heads of HR. They really need to think more about people analytics and how do you can pull the thread on these things. And here's things that I've done in the past. For example, we did, how cool is it to have a 4-day work week? Cool, great. The business problem we're solving is that we had at Patagonia, our skiers and surfers were leaving because we lived in a beach town. in Ventura. They can't ski, you can't climb typically in Ventura. So how do we solve that? And they said, well, we just need more time off on the weekends because it's just tough to get out. So we said, okay, we experimented a 4-day work week. In addition to measuring productivity and all those things, we did a pre and post survey, and we asked, did this improve the relationship with your spouse? More time with kids, be able to get healthy food? Are you more productive? Are you more collaborative? Every single marker went up in the 4-day work week. It's a benefit we couldn't take back. Another example, this conversation about return to work. So a company I worked for, Guild, the CEO put a line in the sand with the board and said, I am not requiring everyone to come back to work. Then she turned to me and it's like, Dean, solve this problem. We've got loneliness. People are concerned about collaboration. Like, this is a big issue. So like, can you figure this out? So I turned to my work lab team and said, hey, I've got a problem. You solve this. So I said, solve this. And they came up with like using the scientific method. I've got a hypothesis. Here's something we can think of. Let's measure it, do A/B testing, and then let's implement and see if this works. The hypothesis was that people feel like they don't belong and are lonely because of remote work, because they're not connected to community and other people in the organization. So we determined that there were like regional clusters of people that live in New York, in Chicago, and in Orlando, and in California, and in Seattle. And then we created community captains. We paid them a little more money to do this and said, create community however this community wants, whatever that definition is. And it's multiple levels, multiple departments. Only thing you have in common is you live near each other within a driving distance. And we had another group called Lives Not Near No One. They're like, all down in Iowa. Like middle of nowheres. And so they all had shared this very common interest in, like, we live in the middle of nowhere. So we did these captains. We measured belonging, productivity, collaboration, all these things before. And we did a group that didn't move. We tested the home office as well. So people in office. 6 months later, the ones that had extraordinary community captains, productivity went up, collaboration went up, depression went down, belonging went up, experience went up. All the factors that lead to better productivity went up in Orlando and Chicago. And those are the ones who had really, really active. The corporate office stayed the same, no change at all. And so still as lonely and depressed as they were before. But my point is, we need to be more clever. We have to measure it. And when it came time to the budget, the next thing, should we do these community captains again? The company said yes, because we have a business model that supports it. And I always stop every program. Are you doing business? Are you using scientific method? Are you using A/B testing? Are you connecting this to a business outcome and a human outcome? Like, what are you doing? Don't launch a single new program like, isn't this cool, unless you're measuring it. Otherwise, I kill it.
Wow. Such a fantastic level of takeaway. And I will say to anyone who is either in HR or is related or one degree of separation from a colleague who is, Dean Carter just gave you a master class in about 10 minutes. So, Dean, that's fantastic. Thanks for being here. If today's conversation sparked something in you, we hope you'll carry it forward with curiosity, compassion, and courage. Subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Until next time, keep exploring what it means to be fully human.